Hiya, welcome to the ZedKraze Show, episode 3, also known as 8th of September 2017. That is when we're broadcasting this live, but of course you may be watching this on a vodcast in the Twitch channel, or perhaps on YouTube, which we do put it on YouTube a couple of days after the live stream. But if you do want to enjoy it, interactive and live and more current as news, then it's best to tune in live on Twitch, 7 PM Australian Western Standard Time on Friday nights, wherever possible. I mean, so far we haven't missed a Friday night yet, so I'm going to say we're pretty consistent with that sort of thing so far. But of course, what is the point of the ZedKraze Show if you've never been in here before? Well, the point is to wrap up the week in news. And you know what, I was starting to get a bit concerned because I thought we had Gamescom a couple of weeks ago, and that's when we did the first episode of the ZedKraze Show. And I was thinking, hey, maybe news is not going to be as interesting after Gamescom because there's no big announcements happening necessarily. So yeah, but we, you know, at the start of the week I didn't have much news to really talk about, but by the end of today, yeah, there's a decent amount to talk about. So I think we will probably have somewhere close to an hour show like we normally do on the ZedKraze Show. So yeah, quite a bit of things to talk about for sure. Shout out to Kid Chaos, thanks for joining us live in the chat there. Yeah, but let's not waste too much time. Let's just get straight into the news. Now, of course, we are live broadcasting on Twitch here for the ZedKraze Show, and wanted to see. I was kind of expecting to have a bit of news from out of PAX West, because if you don't know, PAX West was on the weekend. That's based in Seattle. It's a 4-day gaming convention, but it's more about the culture around gaming. It's more about the people and that, less so about big companies making big announcements and having conferences. It's a bit more grassroots than that, even though it's a massive convention. So unlike Gamescom, you don't necessarily get these big announcements come out of it. And there wasn't really, but I did watch the Twitch panel that happened at PAX. And there was some pretty big announcements made from Twitch. I believe actually they were made prior to their Twitch panel, but they at least went into a bit more detail. So we've got some Twitch news, for that. And yeah, the biggest one is, and hopefully something I'm hoping to introduce into my channel soon, is a thing called extensions. So if you're wondering what extensions are going to be a thing on Twitch whereby you can, the viewer themselves can interact with the stream by clicking on the screen, and like little widgets sort of things will pop up on the screen and you'll be able to interact with them. So for example, let's say you're watching a pro, I think one example was Binding of Isaac, a game I have streamed on this channel. There was a live tracker where the viewer could actually click on it and check what the stats were of that person playing the game was, where they're at this point, sort of thing. So it can show what items they've got and so forth. And so depending on what game you're playing, depending on what the streamer's doing, there's different extensions that you can put into your channel as a streamer on Twitch that can help make it a bit more interactive for your viewers. So whether that's just purely to find out more information and stats about the stream that's happening right now, or if it's perhaps to interact with the actual streamer themselves more. Like I saw something about having ones for competitions and polls and stuff like that. So it does open up a whole new range of possibilities with Twitch streams. So I think that's something I want to look into. If you have been watching my normal game streams on Wednesday and Sunday nights, you'll notice that every stream I'm trying to add a little bit, you know, change something up, add something new. Not in some sort of way of making it really fresh and exciting, but just like I keep trying to refine the stream as I go along. And most recently was adding bots into my channel. Yeah, so I definitely, once I'm happy with where things are at with my stream currently, I'm going to definitely look into extensions and try and add at least one or two into there. I mean, I'm not much of a pro gamer sort of scenario with my streams, so I don't think everyone's really wanting to know what my maybe kill stats are on PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, because I can tell you straight away they're always 0. But there may be other extensions that might suit my channel, while for other channels, different extensions will suit them. So yeah, extensions look cool. They appear to be free for the streamers so far, but I wonder if there's some sort of monetization possibility there for developers as well. I guess we'll have to see how it goes. It's all very new, but it is already available. It's already on my dashboard basically for Twitch. There's a link there for extensions manager, so you can already start adding extensions to your channel. I didn't just jump onto that straight away because I want to look into them first before adding them. But yeah, if you do watch the ZedKraze channel, be sure to expect some extensions, at least one I'd say. Possibly I've seen one by Streamlabs, which is who I use for my donations, and keeping track of all, when you see followers and that pop up on my screen. Which shout out to Loftwire for the recent follow tonight. It didn't pop up live on the stream, but you can see down the bottom there which way we're looking. Yeah, that one. Yeah, it just popped up there. Yeah. So yeah, they seem to have an extension, so I'm going to look into that. I think that's going to be probably quite useful for me because I do use Stream labels and labs at this point. Other Twitch news was they're running a few promotions this month in September. One is half price off subs. So if you're new to subscribing to a particular channel, perhaps the ZedKraze channel, maybe you haven't subscribed to the ZedKraze channel before and you're thinking about doing it, well, guess what? You can do it for half price this month only. But the good thing is, it's not some rort to rip off the streamers themselves. It's basically taking Twitch's cutouts. So if you don't know, I guess a bit of behind the scenes action, but for subscriptions, Twitch takes a 50-50 cut with subscriptions. So say it was a $5 subscription, US dollars, I would get $2.50, Twitch would get $2.50. Well, for this month, I actually get all of the $2.50. You only pay $2.50 and Twitch gets nothing. So, I mean, that's quite generous on their behalf to not take any profit from the half-price subs. But it's also obviously a way to promote people to experiment and try out subscribing to a new channel and that. And of course, if you subscribe to the ZedKraze channel, you get awesome Nitro Head emoticon, which you can kind of see just behind us. That bad boy right there, right? I'm really bad at aiming on looking at my screen there. Yeah, I'm doing Wiggles fingers at this point. Yeah, that Nitro the dog. That's the emoticon you get on the ZedKraze stream. I do have 2 more emoticons coming for higher tier subscribers, but yeah, they're not quite available yet. I need to work on them a bit more. So yeah, if you have been interested in subscribing to my channel or any Twitch streamer's channel, this month's a good time to try out because it will only cost you half the price it normally would. And of course, there's 3 tiers for Twitch subscribers. There's $5, which would be $2.50 for this month. There's I think is it $12.99 or something like that is the middle tier one, and that would be half that price. And then the top tier, which is $24.99 US dollars, which would be about $12.50 for this month. And the final promotion that they have for this month is charity cheers. So I'm not completely up on what this is, but I believe if you cheer certain Twitch streamers like myself in channel, which is a way of kind of donating and that sort of thing in a way. Twitch is going to match those cheers up to, I think, $200,000 and be donating that to, I believe it's a child cancer charity, but I could be wrong, so don't quote me on a lot of these things. So if you want to look into this, it's best you go onto the Twitch website, twitch.tv, to look into the charity cheers thing. I believe you have to put hashtag charity along with your cheer or something like that. So yeah, but if you are interested in doing that, it's a good way to support charity and also support your local streamer. So check out twitch.tv for more information on that. A few shout outs to the channel. Shout out to WR Kenzie. Respect. Thanks for tuning in from Malta. I don't think I've had anyone from Malta tune in before, so welcome, Kenzie. Welcome to the ZedKraze channel. I'm not sure I've seen you in the channel before, so welcome to the ZedKraze channel. Tonight, if this is your first time to the ZedKraze channel, this ZedKraze show is a bit different to my normal streams. So on Wednesday and Sunday nights, I do game streams where I'm streaming games, obviously. But Friday nights, the ZedKraze show is a live news wrap up of gaming news this week. So yeah, welcome to the stream. Welcome to the ZedKraze show. Okay, moving on to our next batch of news. And we're talking some Switch news. And Switch continues to tempt me. I just cheaper and maybe a little bit more battery life and a little bit more games I actually want to play on it. But anyway, that's another story. The Switch news we do have is that it came out this week that some Switch games may require a micro SD expansion card to actually play the full game. So if you don't know, the Switch comes with very limited onboard storage. I think it's 32 gigabytes off the top of my head, which is just insane. I mean, even when the Wii U was out, it only had a maximum of that inbuilt storage, and that was previous generation console. So to think that the Switch still only has 32 gig, I mean, most mobile phones have. I mean, this one here. Okay, this is an iPhone 6 Plus, right? This is 3 years old, and it would be about that right now because the iPhone 8 is about to be announced next week. Yeah, this would be 3 years old because there's been the 6S since then and the 7, and now we're going on to the 8. This has 128 gigabyte storage on it. This phone. Yet the Nintendo Switch only has 32 gig. Now, of course, that's partly to keep the price down, and I just complained about how expensive it is as it is. So I guess trying to keep the price down and then choosing if you want to expand the memory yourself with SD cards is a thing. But, yeah, how stupid is that? That you actually have to buy an expansion card to play the full game of a game that you've purchased. Like, I mean, they come with, like, cartridges. Essentially, these little SD card style cartridges, but clearly they mustn't have enough storage space on them to play the whole game, combined with even using the onboard storage. So, yeah, that's pretty bad news. I mean, the Switch is already at the butt of jokes as far as like trying to get decent frame rates and other things like that on it, and how it's so underpowered compared to other consoles out there. I mean, yeah, the joke now is, will it run on Switch whenever a new game is announced? Or, hey, why don't you put it on Switch? Why don't you port it to Switch? It's because most developers don't know if they can actually run it on Switch unless it's like a 2D indie game or something like that, or a game like Skyrim that was released 5 years ago that they still struggle to try and get to work on a 2017 console. But hey, let's not forget the fact that the Switch is a pretty amazing console in the respect of its portability and that sort of thing. So, but yeah, that's a really bad design. They surely knew the size of what games were going to possibly be up to that could end up on the Switch. So to have a situation where, so what they've got is on the actual packet of the box of the Switch games that require this. They actually have a big banner at the top saying you will need a micro SD expansion card to play this full game, which is just insane. It's just insane. And I can see, like, okay, I might notice that personally, like I'm very particular about checking up on these things, but your average person that's just going into, you know, the local game store to pick up a game would expect that if you purchase the game, you just put it into your game console that it's supposed to be for. I mean, this is supposed to be one of the benefits of consoles over PC gaming, is it's supposed to be just plug and play. You put it in and it works. But I wonder how many people are going to get caught out by buying a game that they thought would just work on it and then find out they have to actually go out and spend another $20 to $100 to get an expansion card just so they can play the game that they've already paid money for, which is probably at a premium price in the first place because all Nintendo games are so expensive. So, yeah, I think that's going to be another strike against the Switch. But, I mean, the Switch has been doing well. Me, personally, I think I'm going to try and hold off. As much as I keep getting tempted every now and then to want to get a Switch, I'll wait for... I'm hoping that they're going to release... You know how they do with like the 3DS and all that? They release revisions of it and that. I'm hoping that's going to be the same with the Switch, and that maybe next year or a year after we get a better version of the Switch that has longer battery life, maybe a better quality screen or something like that, and hopefully more expansion, more onboard storage, so you don't have to get an SD card. I mean, I'm not complaining. Well, I am, but but I mean, I would get an expansion card for it anyway. So it's not so much that it would affect me personally, even though that's going to add even more costs onto a Switch by buying an SD card. But yeah, I can see this is going to catch out a lot of their player base. And when you think about that, Nintendo target the casual market and not the hardcore market, they're more likely the market that are going to not check to find out that you need to have a micro SD card. They might not even know what a micro SD card is or why you would need to have a micro SD card because, hey, I just bought the game. Why doesn't it work? I mean, that's a logical thing to think of if you're not so up on technology in that. And that's a lot of Nintendo's player base, is that it's a casual market. And that's fine. That's awesome. Everyone should play games, not just hardcore gamers. But the worst thing you can do is make it more complicated for them. So, yeah, that's a bit disappointing on the Switch behalf, but yeah. Kid Chaos says, I have not spent 1 single second tempted to buy a Switch. Oh, that's interesting. But yeah, I think it's a tempting proposition. I mean, especially if you're a person that traveled a lot, especially if you travel to work or something like that on a bus or train, or you travel on a plane a lot and things like that. I think the Switch offers a lot of interesting things. Like, I mean, if you could get Fallout 4 onto the Switch, that could possibly get me to buy it alone, sort of thing. You know, having Fallout 4 on the go, man, that would be sweet. Yeah, I mean, Nintendo still has some of those exclusives, you know. I would like to play Breath of the Wild. I do have a Nintendo Wii U, which I've used twice, and then I've just used it to catch dust in my house. But yeah, I could always get Breath of the Wild on there, but I know it runs worse than it does on the Switch, surprisingly. It runs at 720p, while the Switch version of Breath of the Wild runs at 900p. So I feel like if I'm going to bother to buy anything more Nintendo related, I want to get it for the Switch, but then that comes with a $470 Australian dollar price tag to just do that. So maybe I should just try and pick it up cheap secondhand or something like that on Wii U instead and finally play that game. I mean, it's interesting. I'm going to be doing my top 10 games of the year at the end of the year. For all I know, maybe Zelda Breath of the Wild is the game of the year. I doubt it is for me, but I know I keep getting slightly tempted by it. Loftwire is saying Mario Kart, Super Smash Bros. I'd buy it just for them if friends played them. I mean, yeah, I think that's the other temptation with the Switch, is that if you've got other people that have Switches, then be able to play like in person, like wireless co-op and versus modes and stuff like that. Rocket League, Loftwire I know is a big fan of Rocket League. So yeah, Rocket League coming to Switch, I think, is like an amazing boom, I guess, for the Switch. So yeah, definitely there is some reasons for it. Kid Chaos says playing games on the go is what your smartphone is. You're correct. I do all my mobile gaming on my mobile phone. Yeah, I love playing games on my phone. Like, so yeah, I think you're somewhat right. Like, I can have this in my pocket I'm gonna have this in my pocket all the time anyway to play. To, you know, do other things like check the internet, you know, make phone calls, whatever. So I can also use it as a gaming device, and honestly, it runs probably as good as a Switch would anyway. And the screen is not actually a heck of a lot smaller either. The only thing you're missing is controllers and Nintendo exclusive games, even though some Nintendo stuff is starting to come out on iOS and that. So yeah, you do make a good point, Kid Chaos. The Switch, while very portable and small, is not something you can just shove in your pocket and carry around with you everywhere. You're probably going to need a backpack or a handbag or something like that for it. So, yeah, you are correct. But, you know, I don't know if there's anything quite comparable to Super Mario Odyssey and Zelda Breath of the Wild that's available on mobile. So, but then when you're maybe just playing games for like 10 or 15 minutes, are you really going to sink yourself into a more AAA style title at that point? Probably not. So on the plane, awesome. That's a great way to waste a few hours and that sort of thing while you're waiting to get to wherever you're going. But maybe for short trips and that, maybe mobile gaming is still the way to go. And this is, in many ways, Nintendo's grab at trying to get the casual market back to them, because they lost a lot of it to mobile gaming. So, yeah, so I think they're doing a pretty good job. I think it is the best designed concept like this that this has happened so far. I mean, there has been others that have tried to do things like this, like the Nvidia Shield and a few other sort of no-namer sort of versions of like sort of portable console sort of thing that I'm not talking about like the Vita and stuff like that. I'm talking about actual ones that have done a similar design to what the Switch is before. So the Switch isn't necessarily original in that respect, but it definitely feels like it's got it right. That said, I've only spent about 5 minutes hands-on with a Switch, and I actually came away with it not that impressed. I felt like the build quality didn't feel as good as I was expecting and that, and yeah, it didn't completely sell me at that point. But once the price point gets down to a reasonable point, I think I may be tempted. Anyway, that's a lot more talking about the Switch than I expected, though we do have a little bit more about the Switch later on. Let's go into some PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds news. So the big news for PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, I think like maybe last show, we reported that, PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds became the most played game on Steam, most concurrent players at one time, beating Dota for the first time ever, for a brief period of time, not a long time, but it happened, and that's really significant. Like, I mean, it's a non-Valve game beating a Valve game, the best, I mean, not the best game, definitely not, I'm not into Dota, but the most popular game on Steam. So that was big news. Now, even possibly in some ways bigger news, PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds has now sold 10 million copies. So let's just put this in perspective. One, this is, I mean, it's not a small studio. It's a Korean studio led by PlayerUnknown, and I'm not sure their dev size or anything like that, but I think it's still got, you know, they've got a decent amount of people working on it. It's not quite, I think, AAA size, but, you know, it's a decent sized company anyway. Bluehole, I think, is the name of the company off the top of my head. But anyway, so this is 10 million copies sold in early access over, what, I think about 6 months. I think it launched around February, March time originally. It's still in early access, not out of early access until the end of the year. It's still only on PC, so it hasn't released on Xbox. So this is not adding Xbox sales on yet. So just imagine once it gets onto Xbox as well, and for how desperate Xbox players must be for a decent semi-exclusive game like PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, that is going to sell like hotcakes once that gets onto the Xbox One. But here, let this blow you away. 2 weeks ago, there was 8 million copies sold. So that means in about 2 weeks, they've sold an extra 2 million copies. I think that's somewhat from Gamescom. Like, Gamescom was about 2 weeks ago, and they were on a few panels and stuff like that and promoting it and that. And Microsoft were promoting it as well through their conference they did and that. But wow, 2 million copies sold in 2 weeks. And that's 6 months or so after they launched. So it's not like that first initial rush and hype and that sort of thing. This is like 6 months down the track. This game just keeps building. And to put it even further into perspective, PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds is actually selling at a faster rate than Minecraft originally did when it started. So if you put that in perspective, Minecraft is possibly one of the best, if not the biggest, not best, but biggest selling games of all time. Notch sold Minecraft to Microsoft for like $2.5 billion. So what does that say about PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds if it's actually selling at a faster rate than Minecraft? And I'm not talking about Minecraft now after all these years, after just about every person in the world owns it. I'm talking about when Minecraft first started, it sold less copies than PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds. And to think that this game is not as accessible as Minecraft. You know, Minecraft is aimed at all ages. Now, I gather there's probably kids that are underage and that are probably playing PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds when they probably shouldn't be. Yeah. Still, it's a bit more of a limited audience. 10 million copies. 2 million in the past week. 2 weeks. Nuts. Absolutely nuts. Other news for PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds. Earlier in the week, someone from PlayerUnknown's PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds actually said that Australia won't be getting first-person servers yet due to the low player base in the Oceania server. And that kind of makes sense, I guess, to an extent. If you don't know what the first-person servers are, so currently in PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, you can play first-person or third-person, and arguably, it's a bit easier to play in third-person, except for maybe for shooting and aiming, because you can see further around you. You know, you've got a wider vision of view, so it's a bit harder to get sneaked up on. So they introduced recently first-person mode only servers so that people could feel like they're more level playing ground, and if they preferred first person, they could be playing against other people that were only playing first person, so it was more balanced. I think it was a great idea. I haven't actually tried it out yet because I'm on the Oceania server. Yeah, so they said that they weren't going to add that anytime soon due to the low player base on the Oceania servers. But then that's been contradicted because I think only about a day or two after I read about that, supposedly first-person mode is now available in the duo mode on the Oceania server. So, we'll definitely try that on the ZedKraze stream next time we do a duo mode stream on the ZedKraze stream or PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds. But yeah, it's interesting to see that flipped around quite quickly. I guess maybe they got a bit of backlash from that. So, I mean, obviously servers cost money, but hey, when they just sold 2 million copies of a $30 game, in 2 weeks, I think they can probably afford to spin up an extra server if it allows first-person mode in Oceania. So clearly maybe they thought about that a bit once people started asking questions, and that got a bit of bad publicity that they weren't going to get those servers happening anytime soon in Australia. So good news for Australians like myself and other people that play on the Oceania server. I'm looking forward to trying out the first-person mode. I rarely use it in the other game, but I like the idea of being forced into that, but also knowing that other people are going to be doing the same, so it'll be balanced enough to want to try that out. Kid Cow says, I'm very happy with the popularity of PUBG as a Twitch viewer, as I find it more interesting to watch than CSGO and Call of Duty. Well, I must admit, I'm not a CSGO or Call of Duty fan or player. I actually have neither of the games either anyway, so I guess I wasn't going to be playing it on a streamer anyway. The only Call of Duty that actually somewhat interested me was the recent one, Infinite Warfare, which was interestingly the least popular one, it seems like. They're going back to World War I, I think, for the next game, or World War II. Yeah. I think that's half of the reason why PlayerUnknown's Battleground has been so popular, is because it's a very good game to watch. And that's why I was quite interested in watching the esports tournament they had at Gamescom for PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds. I was really interested in watching that because for once it was an esports game that I could actually understand a bit because I've been playing it a lot. But yeah, supposedly, I only watched a little bit of it, and supposedly there was a lot of problems with doing it. It was the first time they tried it. Supposedly there was a lot of camera issues, not focusing on where the actual action is. But hey, let's keep in mind that most other esports games only have to deal with like anywhere between maybe 2 to maybe 20 players or something like that. PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds has 100 players in one game. So can you think about having to camera switch between those and hope you actually capture the real action? That's going to take some time to figure out how to present that as an esport. But as far as streaming goes and just watching one player and their journey through PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds game, no doubt it is, yeah, a good thing to watch. Lofty has mentioned that we can play on the Asia server, and you're correct. Actually, I was playing on the Asia server for a while. So yeah, I must admit, I didn't know why I couldn't find the first-person servers before when I tried before. Now it makes sense. But now that at least the duo mode has first-person, I think, yeah, we'll just try on the Oceania. I'm trying to stick to the Oceania one anyway. Partly because it's less competitive, because there's a lower player base, so you've got a bit better chance to get up in the ranks. Not that I ever kill count. Alright, that's enough PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds for tonight. We could talk about that game all night, and we could play it all night as well, but we're not going to. Moving on. Now, here's something that came out of nowhere as well. LA Noir, if you don't know, was actually developed in Australia. I think in Sydney. Yeah, because it was done by Team Bondi, which was an offshoot from Rockstar. LA Noir was praised for its facial recognition, well, not recognition technology, scanning technology, and how it did the interrogations and all that. Overall, I found it a little bit lackluster in other ways. Like in a GTA game or something like that, or Red Dead, I would investigate everything around me. But in LA Noir, I really felt like I was almost getting pushed down a tunnel. Even though it was an open world, I didn't feel any need to go look at anything else. I was just going from mission to mission. But it was not a bad game, but there was a lot of controversy with that game. The studio closed down soon after. There was a lot of reports of the head of the studio ripping off, I think, some of their staff and that sort of thing. So there was a lot of bad blood there anyway. So really, many thought, okay, well, LA Noir was a one-off thing and disappears off the face of Earth after this. Well, guess what? No, it's not a sequel, but maybe this is a hint towards it. LA Noir is getting remastered for PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and we were joking about this before, Nintendo Switch. LA Noir is coming to Nintendo Switch. So you can play LA Noir on the go now if you want to. Well, not yet, but soon. I don't think I saw a release date for it yet. But that's quite bizarre. So clearly, Rockstar still own the IP for it, and they're possibly trying to make some more money off it after. I do wonder if it made its money back or not. But yeah, I guess that's a good thing to hear that this is going to be remastered. For people that haven't played it before and people that really enjoyed the game. I won't be going back to it. I enjoyed the time I had with it, but I'm no rush to go back to it. But I definitely would play a sequel. So if this is a hint towards that there's going to be a sequel, and maybe they're building a new engine to run it off, or I wouldn't say new engine necessarily, because they probably do share the same engine as GTA. But yeah, that's quite an interesting curveball. Wasn't expecting that really. So so if you're an LA Noir fan and you've got a current generation console, good news, it's come to you. And hopefully that means the PC version. Is there a PC version? I can't remember. Maybe there isn't. But if there is, then hopefully that means a free update for the current owners. I'll have to look into that. But yeah, so good news, and hopefully that is a hint at possibly a sequel in the future, because it is a decent game for sure, and anything with the Rockstar brand on it is pretty much a seal of approval for a decent experience. You know, Rockstar can rarely do wrong, and the level of detail in their open worlds is just second to none, really. So, I think. That's good news. Maybe I won't get it, but maybe you will. Moving on to South Park, The Fractured Butthole. What a name to say live on the stream, on the ZedKraze show. The original South Park game, well, not the original, I mean, there's been previous ones. There was one on Nintendo 64 and other consoles and that, but we're talking about the more modern version of South Park games that look identical to the actual animated series, and RPGs based on that. The previous game, the Stick of Truth, that's the name of it. I'm using the top of my head, which is not always the fastest thing in the world. I didn't get that on launch, but when I did finally get around it, I rated it highly. So well done. So I'm actually going to be grabbing South Park: The Fractured Butthole on launch this time round. It comes out in October, a YouTube video popped up showing the character creator, which, for me personally is always one of the biggest parts of a game, in particular RPG adventure sort of games. Being able to create your own character, I can spend up to an hour working on a character. I get way too into that for some reason. South Park's taken a little bit of a different take on the character creation thing. So you got your usual thing, choose what clothing you want, what hairstyle you want, and stuff like that. But then, it's not unusual for a character creator to have a way to select your skin tone or your race and so forth. South Park's approach to that is slightly different. what it actually does is the darker you select your skin, the harder the difficulty of the game is. Now, there's a good chance, and probably most likely chance, that this is just purely a joke. But maybe it is how you pick the game difficulty. I doubt it. I think they're just trying to make a statement there, sort of thing. But and you also hear the voice of Cartman saying, "Don't worry, having dark skin won't affect your combat. It only affects everything else in life." But yeah, what a amazing visual metaphor and way to express the concept of white privilege, or the disadvantage of people with darker skin than, say, myself, by actually visually saying your life could be more difficult by that. Like, I think it's South Park are so brilliant at always challenging us. And they take on all sides, you know. They never like just parody one side of the story. They always parody both sides of the story and that sort of thing. But if there's anyone that can get away with something like this, but also do it right, I mean, I can't. Like, if anyone sees this as a negative thing, like, I think that's probably more to do with their own racism and that sort of thing. But yeah, I think, yeah, what a brilliant metaphor. Like it's almost like an art piece, like, to see that sort of thing. So, another bit of brilliance from South Park, of social commentary and that sort of thing. And it'll be interesting to see if that actually is the difficulty setting. I don't think it is. I think it's just like a joke or a statement sort of thing. But yeah, another reason to buy South Park, Fractured But Whole, in October. Yeah, so keep an eye out for that. I don't know if I'll be streaming any of it, but I'll definitely be reviewing it on ZedKraze.com. Right, moving on to some technology news. I mainly try and keep it gaming related, but on the ZedKraze show. But yeah, this is technology that does relate to gaming. There's new, probably, what was it, about a year or so ago, when Microsoft were talking about the creators update for Windows 10. They mentioned that there was a bunch of new VR headsets coming from various sort of PC companies like Dell, Acer, HP, and so forth. And yeah, one of them is actually coming out finally in October. It's called the Dell Visor. Obviously, it's by Dell. And the good thing about these not headphones, these headsets, these VR headsets, is that they're cheaper and they're kind of better. One, they're being dubbed mixed reality. That they seem to, these new ones seem to be coming with like a flip up visor, so it means you don't have to take the whole headset off to check what's happening outside what you're doing. They also seem to, these new batch of headsets seem to have cameras like right where your eyes are, so I think you can see through it if you need to. But also the point of those cameras also is for tracking. Now, if you know about like the PlayStation VR, the HTC Vive, or Oculus Rift, they all require different forms of camera systems to be able to track your motion. Obviously, the Vive has the best setup. It has full-scale room tracking. I believe the Oculus Rift has got gone better in recent times because they've added in extra cameras into the system as well. But yeah, it takes a lot of setup, and you know, most consumers are not going to want to do that. With these new headsets that are coming out by these other companies, they don't require that. They do the tracking from the actual headset itself, I guess through the cameras, kind of looking around at the world and noticing that you're moving and using probably gyros and all that sort of stuff. So that is going to make it way more accessible, way less of a hassle. I mean, I've got a PlayStation VR myself. It's been sitting there gathering dust since about December last year when I played Batman Arkham VR, which is probably one of the best game experiences I've had in my life, but I haven't had a desire to want to use it again since. Because yeah, part of the thing that puts me off is like, I've got to spend about 10-15 minutes getting the camera in the right position and putting the headphone on, plugging the cables back in, and all this other stuff. So the more VR can become a very much put on your head and go sort of scenario, the better it's going to be. So that's definitely a benefit. The other benefit is that this headset, and also the Acer one I was reading about, but the article I was reading about it was about 6 months old, so I don't know where that one's at this point. the resolution is 1440 by 1440 per panel. So that's a decent resolution increase on the current generation of VR headsets, which are all kind of ranking around a sort of 1080 by 1080 sort of resolution. So so that's good, because probably, the PSVR, I really enjoy it. And I've tried out the dev kits of Oculus Rift. I haven't actually tried out the consumer version, and I've also tried out the HTC Vive a couple of times as well. And they're great. But the main thing that holds it back, I think, in many ways, is the resolution. It's still got that, what you call the screen door effect, where you can kind of see the pixels, you can kind of see the grid lines in between. It's not too noticeable once you get into it, if you immerse it right enough, and if it's got the right sort of graphics. If it's quite minimalist, sort of cartoon, sort of flat textures and that, you less so notice it. But anything with a decent amount of detail in it is a bit more noticeable with that screen door effect. So the higher the resolution, the better that's going to be. So having 1440 by 1440 panels, which would make a total resolution of 1440 high by 2088. No, sorry, 2880 across. That's going to make quite a bit of difference in resolution. It's definitely going to give quite a few lines extra on both your your horizontal and your vertical. So that is going to make a lot of difference. Part of the reason why they don't have people will say, oh, well, you can get a 4K screen on your mobile. Why can't you just chuck that into some VR headsets? Well, it's not just about, oh, can we find a cheap, high res enough screen to put into these headsets? It's also about being able to run games and other VR experiences at that resolution, at the decent enough frame rate, because to avoid motion sickness, you need at least 90 frames per second. Now, if you watch my stream, I'm often commenting about what frame rates I'm getting on games and that, and sometimes even with a GTX 970 graphics card, which is not the worst card in the world or anything, and is classed as like the recommended card upwards for Oculus Rift, I'm often jumping between 30 to 60 frames per second, and that's at probably 1440p or lower often, and not necessarily on high settings or anything. So, if you're running at 1440 by 2880, and you're trying to get 90 frames per second or even 120 frames per second, you're going to need a freaking beefy rig. So it kind of counteracts the fact that these headsets are actually really cheap, because you'd need a really beefy rig to actually be able to run it on that resolution. But yeah, that's part of the reason why it's held up the resolution on VR headsets. So, but we did mention cheap price tag, and that's what's also good about it. Well, the price tag on this Dell visor that comes out in October is $349 US, which translates to probably about 450 Australian dollars, maybe even 500. But still, that's less than a PlayStation VR, which is good, and even less, despite the recent price drops on Oculus Rift and the HTC Vive. It's cheaper than those for sure. At least probably, well, more than half of the HTC Vive, and probably just around half the price. Or maybe not quite half the price. No, actually, because I think the Oculus Rift is down to about 600 or 700 Australian dollars now. So, yeah, maybe half, maybe 1.5 times the price of what this Dell visor is. But keep in mind, that doesn't come with any nice motion controllers or anything like that. And there is supposed to be, I think, some motion controllers coming out for it as well, which are going to be worth about 100 US dollars. So once you add that on top, maybe it's getting quite up to that Oculus Rift price again. Which is part of the reason why I think Oculus have knocked down the price, because they knew these cheaper and higher resolution headsets without the need of cameras were coming out, so the Rift was not going to seem as competitive anymore. So keep that in mind if you're thinking about trying to get into VR. Like, I know a lot of people with the price drops recently been considering the Vive and the Oculus Rift, but keep in mind that there are these cheaper headsets coming out that are a bit easier to use and higher resolution. doesn't mean they're necessarily better quality. You know, maybe the tracking kind of sucks. Maybe they don't have good motion controllers. Who knows? Who knows what the whole experience is? But hopefully we'll hear some reviews sometime in the next month or two in regards to that. Next up, we couldn't really talk about this week without talking Destiny 2. Now, if you watch my Destiny 2 PC beta stream, you would know I'm not a fan of the game. So, of course, I have not raced out and bought it on console. If I was going to buy it, it'd be on PC, which is not coming out till October 24th. But I'm not going to buy it on PC. I'm not going to buy it on anything because I found it boring and repetitive and grindy, just like the first game. And that's, yeah, and a lot of the reviews that are coming out so far are pretty much saying it's not really much of a sequel, it's just kind of like a refined expansion that is really large and charging retail price. But that said, the reviews that are out so far have been coming up pretty high ranked. The Metacritic on it currently is at 88 out of 100, so that's pretty damn good. Considering I personally would have rated it around a 60 maybe, if you're lucky. And that's just because I can jump around and float in the air. That's the only part I like about Destiny. So yeah, so getting good reviews so far. Though I did notice on Metacritic a lot of the reviews were from more unknown sort of websites and blogs and not your major ones. So it'll be interesting to see once those major reviews come in, what they actually say, because a lot of the reviews, if you check the Metacritic page for Destiny 2, are in progress, which is understandable because you probably want to get through all the content first and really get a sense of the online play, because even if those outlets, those media outlets actually had access to it prior to the game launching, they might not have necessarily had access to all the online services at that point, sort of thing. So really, the game has only been out, I think, for a day or two live, and I think they've been having possibly some server issues, unless I'm confusing that with Absolver, the recent indie fighting game that's been having some server issues. So yeah. But still, even if it takes a few knocks from the major outlets, you know, having a Metacritic in the 80s is no doubt pretty good for a game that is not much different to the previous game. So, and only has come out like, what, 2, maybe 3 years after the original one came out. So, when they were talking about a 10-year vision, Destiny's going to go for 10 years. But clearly they weren't talking about you can keep playing the first game for 10 years. They were talking about the franchise perhaps is going for 10 years and you need to keep ponying up 30 to $100 every 3 to 6 months. Anyway, so that's my Destiny 2 news for the week. I'm not going to say any more about it because I can't because I'm not playing it. Anyway, moving on to something I do like a bit more, and that's Bethesda. And Bethesda have let leak in an interview. I think it was Pete Hines from Bethesda in an interview just recently mentioned that there's an unannounced game that they haven't announced yet, even at E3 or Gamescom they haven't mentioned it, and it's coming out this year. So I don't know if this is a Fallout 4 sort of scenario whereby, you know, when they announced Fallout 4, of course there was rumors and all that and leaks and stuff for many years about Fallout 4, and, you know, there was rumors about the Boston location at least probably a couple of years prior to that, so we did kind of get hints that it was maybe going to be set there already, but they didn't actually announce the game for real till about 5 months before release. I don't know if this is going to be a similar scenario here where they're trying to take that another level again and say, boom, here's a game and it's coming out next week or something like that. I don't think it's going to be as dramatic as that, and I don't think it's going to be some big epic game that we're been hoping for. Like, I would love a Fallout 4, no, like a Fallout MMO, like Fallout Online, kind of like Elder Scrolls Online, but Fallout. That I would jump on. I don't think it's going to be this rumored that was supposed to, people were rumoring that it was going to be announced at E3. Starfield, I think it's called, which was supposed to be like a mashup of like the worlds of Fallout and Skyrim in a sort of sci-fi setting or something like that. Some crazy game. That more sounds like one of the games that they've mentioned that they're working on, that they're supposed to go, I think, 2 games that are bigger than any game they've ever made in their lives, basically, which I'm guessing is probably Elder Scrolls 6 which is not coming out this year. That's supposed to be not. That's still quite a few years off, supposedly, because obviously they're busy rehashing Skyrim over and over again. With Skyrim VR coming out in October or November, and the Switch version coming out. Yeah, but yeah, I think it might be a mobile game. I reckon it's a mobile game. There's been talk about a mobile game, a free-to-play possibly mobile game. Of course, Fallout Shelter went quite well for them. I think it was a bit of a surprise for them that went so well. I didn't really get into it personally, but I know a lot of people did get into it. So I would expect this new unannounced game for Bethesda that's coming out later this year is more likely a mobile game, because if it was something bigger, surely they would have at least announced it at Gamescom or E3. There's Tokyo Game Show coming up soon, but I doubt they're going to announce it at Tokyo Game Show. That's more of obviously a Japanese orientated sort of event, so we're more likely to see Japanese developers and PlayStation games to be announced there. And of course, there's PlayStation Experience at the end of the year, and the Game Awards, which are often places for big announcements and that, but that's usually for what's coming out next year, not, hey, we've got Bethesda, we're releasing a new game and it's out next week in December. I doubt that's going to happen. But yeah, possibly a new Bethesda mobile game coming out. Hopefully it's a good one, because I do like my mobile gaming. So keep an eye out for that. Good to know that there's some more stuff coming out from Bethesda. Next up, and finally, should I say, for tonight's ZedKraze show, and we have looks like we have clocked in for about an hour show. I really didn't think I was going to make it for an hour-long ZedKraze show for tonight. I actually came up with a thing which was going to be a talk topic, where I was just going to rant about a particular topic to do with gaming to fill some air, because I thought I was going to be done in about half an hour. But yeah, ended up being enough news to make for a full-hour show, which is kind of the length I want the ZedKraze show to be, so that's good that it's working out to be that. Anyway, so the last bit of news for this week is Magic the Gathering Arena. Now, if you don't know, I might have mentioned it prior, maybe on one of my streams or something like that. Magic Duels is a current digital game for most consumers. I mean, there is, of course, Magic the Gathering Online, which is a really archaic sort of 90s looking version of Magic the Gathering played online. But it's adored by the hardcore Magic the Gathering fans, because it's very accurate and there's no fancy distractions, and it's just straight up magic and that. Anyway, so Magic Duels was supposed to be the game that actually replaced the previous digital games, which was aimed at more beginners and people didn't want such a hardcore experience, which was called, what was it? Something Planeswalkers, of course. Duels of the Planeswalkers. That's what. So the previous digital games was Duels of Planeswalkers, and they used to release a yearly revision of that. So it was Duels of Planeswalkers like 2014, 2015, and so forth. And you'd pay $10 US to get a new game, and it'd come with a new batch of cards for that sort of year and that sort of thing. Then they released Magic Duels to replace that, and the idea was that it was supposed to go for years, and this was the new replacement. It was going to be a platform where new sets would just get released on it. It was free to play, and you just pay for cards like you would on other free to play card games like Hearthstone and so forth, rather than paying an upfront fee to get access to the new campaign or whatever. So yeah, so people were expecting, I think, that this new Magic the Duels should go for at least about 5 years, if not 10 years, because this was a new digital platform. I feel really sorry for anyone that's actually paid for any in-app purchases in that game, because now it's been made irrelevant, basically, because as of this new set coming up, Ixalan, actually, I'm not even sure even the last set, Hours of Devastation, is being supported in Duels, because it's the end of Duels. You'll still probably be able to play it, technically, but they're going to stop supporting it now, because they're replacing it with the Magic the Gathering Arena. And basically, from what I've seen, so they did a live stream. They've been talking about this for a couple of months now, but this week they finally actually showed it for the first time. It's been produced by their own in-house digital studio, which I think is a good thing, that gives them more control, and it'll be maybe a bit more authentic that way. But yeah, they showed it for the first time on a live stream this week, actually on Twitch, I think it was. And yeah, from what I watch of it, it doesn't look much different. people were saying, oh, it's Magic the Hearthstone or something like that, because they're obviously doing this to try and compete with Hearthstone, because they just so far haven't been able to compete with it. And yeah, there is some little elements that feel a bit like Hearthstone, like they've got these extra animations in there to make it a bit more flashy, and the whole game runs at a bit of a faster pace, but they've also simplified things. It looked like they've taken off the flavor text off the cards and that, so you could just purely focus on the instructions, which should hopefully make it easier to play it. I must admit, even myself, as someone who has played quite a decent amount of Magic over the years, well, not a huge amount, but yeah, enough to say I know how to play the game at least. But I do find when all these new cards are coming out, it's like, what the hell is that? And I'm going to spend ages to read it. So I feel like it looked like they were making that a bit more accessible and that. But otherwise, I don't really see the point of having a new game in many ways. But here's some reasons why there might be a point of doing a new game. One, they're building it in-house and rather than outsourcing it to other studios. And two, they're building it in Unity. And the good thing about Unity is that it's multi-platform in the respect that you can export to pretty much just about any gaming platform you can think of. Now, of course, Magic Jewels did actually have like iOS and Android versions and so forth, but the difference was that they didn't have linked accounts. So if you played on mobile phone, your progress did not, and your purchases and your unlocks of cards and that did not carry over to playing, say, on the PC version, which I think is a major disadvantage that Magic had over Hearthstone. That's what's great about Hearthstone. If I play some games on Hearthstone, I know anything I spend my time on there is also going to pop up on the PC version. And also, if you actually decide to do some in-app purchases, it's going to transfer over. And I think that's really respecting the player. And so hopefully, the fact that they're saying it's coming out for PC first, but will come to other platforms, and that's part of the reason they went to Unity, I'm hoping that is a hint at the fact that we're hopefully going to have linked accounts, and it's somehow maybe it might relate to the Wizards of the Coast accounts that you have with you if you play like real physical Magic as well. Hopefully that is a sign that they're actually going to have linked accounts so that you can play on any platform for Magic the Gathering Arena, and you will have your progress and your unlocks and your purchases be available on all platforms, and it all transfers over and syncs up, because that will help them catch up a lot to games like Hearthstone. But I still think they haven't mentioned it yet, and what they showed, they said, was pre-alpha, so I don't think we'll be seeing this anytime soon. Probably not till next year sometime. But it looked pretty slick for a pre-alpha. It seemed to work fine. But yeah, the thing they didn't mention, and this is the thing I've said before on the ZedKraze stream, the thing that could give them a massive advantage over Hearthstone and other digital card games that others can't compete with. Put a QR code onto your Magic cards, the physical real cards, and let you to scan that so you can play those cards in the game. Now, I know that means you can't double dip with your revenue and try to sell people real physical cards and virtual ones, but that's where your competitive advantage is versus a monolith like Hearthstone, which is crazy to say because obviously Magic the Gathering is a monolith, but in the digital space, Hearthstone dominates. So if they really want to beat Hearthstone, I think they really have to have this scan version, so that it means like you go out and buy a real packet of Magic cards, you scan the code, you get to keep that card in your digital version as well. That would just absolutely dominate. It would increase the physical card sales, but also people could maybe still buy digital versions of packets if they want to at a slightly cheaper price, without getting a physical version if they're not interested in the physical version. But that's a massive advantage. Like, I would possibly, like, I'll be honest, I'm never going to buy virtual packets of cards. It's quite simple. Like, honestly, like I've bought expansions for Ascension on my iPhone, but that's like $3 to get a whole set of new cards and that sort of thing. I'm not going to buy packets of cards. I'm not going to pay $1.50, $2 for 5 virtual cards on an online game that, as you can see, they could drop support for after a year or two anyway, and then you've just lost all this money on these cards you invested in. But if they had physical cards synced with an actual online game, yeah, I'd be in. That would be sucking me back into wanting to buy physical cards again, because then it means I can play in person, but I can also play online. And that Magic, that's the advantage Magic has here. But yeah, I still feel like there's still going to be like staying away from that concept, even though surely they've thought of it before. Surely it's been suggested before. I'm sure I'm not original here by suggesting this for the first time or something like that. I'm sure they've heard of this concept before. And actually, I think it's not original at all, because from what is it, Pokemon possibly, or Yu-Gi-Oh possibly already does this already, so there's already possibly a precedent for it. So take that precedent, use it to dominate the digital card space, because Magic is a great game. I do like it. It's got the best artwork around. But yeah, they still haven't quite got to the point where they get digital. And if anything, even though Magic the Gathering Arena is their attempt to try and get digital more, in some ways it's a slap in the face at all the people that really invested their time into and money into Magic Duels, which will hope... I already saw someone commenting saying, I'm not going to trust Wizard of Coast ever again because I was really invested in Magic Duels, and now they've just ditched it after a year or two after they said, oh, this was the new platform for ages. So I think they will lose some faith with some people because of this move. But hopefully this is the platform that they stick with for the next at least 5 years. They've got to do it for at least 5 years, if not 10. If they don't, they're just going to have to accept that they're never going to dominate the digital space. If you are interested in it, you can actually sign up for the beta. They don't mention when that beta is going to be. There's going to be a PC beta soon in the future. So if you want to do that, I can't remember the website address. I think it's playmtgarena.com possibly, but don't quote me on that. So just look for Magic the Gathering Arena online and you'll find the official website, and then you can sign up for the beta from there. I've done that, and as long as they allow that to be streamed and I do get picked for the beta, I'll definitely be streaming it, and I'm sure I'll be playing it. But will I be playing it much? I don't know. It really depends on how they approach this, because really I don't see much what it's offering at this point compared to Magic Duels, and I didn't play Magic Duels that much, so unless it's got the linked accounts and hopefully the scannable cards, physical card thing idea, I don't know if I'll be jumping in that much more than I was before. Anyway, so that about wraps up our ZedKraze show for tonight. I hope you've enjoyed the third episode of the ZedKraze show. It ended up being as long as I hoped it would be. And hopefully there's enough gaming news next week to do a very similar length show. But of course, this is not all the ZedKraze channel is about. We do play games on the ZedKraze show and other things. So, yeah, Sunday nights and Wednesday nights from 7 PM Australian Western Standard Time is when I normally stream. This Sunday night will be a slightly different stream. I am in the studio right now for this stream, but for Sunday night stream I will be away house sitting a house. So I will be doing another laptop stream, which is slightly different and slightly less technically advanced. So with that in mind, I'm actually going to be trying out a new idea. I don't want to spoil it, but it's not going to be a game stream. It's going to be something else. So tune in on Sunday for that. Of course, the ZedKraze show, the games news wrap-up show, will happen every Friday night. And we will return to regular streaming from Wednesday night onwards, back in the studio. So no more webcam, laptop streams from Wednesday night onwards. So yeah, the best ways to know what's coming up on the ZedKraze channel is to follow on twitch.tv/ZedKraze, or of course the other socials where I give updates and heads. And I've really got to change this graphic because I keep blocking it. It's stupid. Let's see. Let's just chuck it on top, and then you can see the actual banner properly. So these are the socials that you need to know. Twitter.com/ZedKraze or Facebook.com/ZedKraze. Them's the places to go to get. I normally give warnings of when I'm about to stream and what I might be playing and that, and on the stream, of course, as well. Anyway, let's wrap this up because, as Loftwar has said, it has been perfect timing. We have gone about an hour stream. If you have missed this, well, this does make sense. Do remember, or for some reason you want to replay me ranting for an hour, the ZedKraze show will always archive into the Twitch channel for 2 weeks in the video vodcast section, and also on YouTube about a couple of days after the live stream. But of course, the best way to watch the ZedKraze show is, and I forgot to cut myself back on again, is to, of course, tune in live, where you can interact with the stream, say what you think about the news that's coming up, and maybe even ask some questions if I'm not really covering what you're wanting to talk about. But I hope you've enjoyed the 3rd episode of the ZedKraze stream. I'll see you on Sunday night for a very special and different stream. Hopefully it works. It's going to be a bit of an experiment, but hopefully it's cool, and we'll hopefully keep doing streams like that in the future. But yeah, that's it for the ZedKraze show for tonight. I hope you've enjoyed it, and until next time, check ya.